I
Stand
see
by,
it
stand
myself.
by.
There.
All right. You should be spotlighted now. Are you able to
Welcome,
share?
everybody.
Hello.
I am, and I have the share screen button. So
Okay.
hopefully my internet is better. I joined my other
That is a
network,
lot
and
better. There is a little bit of a hop when you're talking, but it's not as bad as it was on the other network. So I think we're probably going to be okay if everybody's muted. It is 1 minute after, and we have a pretty full room. So I'm going to take off my hat and put it over my heart and ask that we go to the Lord in prayer.
Hi.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for God, for all of your gifts. God, we thank you for your grace. God, we thank you for your wisdom. God, we know that while the events that happen in life and in the world often surprise us and shock us, God, we know that none of this is a surprise to you. None of this is news to you. And God, we are faithful and trusting that you have a plan. And Father, we thank you for the wisdom of putting people in place to let this conference happen. And God, we just pray that we are fulfilling your purpose in a way that pleases you. And as Bob said yesterday, Father, we want to feel your pleasure. God, let everyone's heart and mind be open to the instruction they receive. God, let the instructors and faculty and staff be emboldened and make wise choices and use wise words today. Father, we ask that every heart and every mind be open to everything that happens. Father, we ask that you uplift Gene as he teaches, uplift every student as they hear. Let us get the most out of this moment that we can. We praise you, we honor you, we love you. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I am going to introduce now Gene Rowley. One moment, please. Yes, babe.
I need JP's phone number. He's not in class.
Okay. Here, it's in my contacts.
Thanks.
Okay. Sorry about that. The director interrupted. So I have known Gene Rowley for a very long time. Yeah, I happen to know a lot about him. He was born at a very young age, and he spent most of his early life unemployed and didn't even have a high school education. And since then has made something of himself. I'm not sure what, but if I if I could be serious for a moment.
For sure. When I was born, when I was
yes.
I can't say that.
Gene and I go way back. We're actually very, very good friends. He and I had the honor of serving our country together when we both, shortly after 9/11, re-enlisted into the United States Army and served together in the 20th Special Forces Group in Afghanistan. Gene got his pilot license and flew unmanned aerial vehicles for the military for a number of years. He owns a radio station, which is operated as a not-for-profit in Alabaster, Alabama. He has written screenplays, novels, owns a publishing firm called Jumpmaster Press, which publishes clean, adventurous books. And he is a nationally recognized and award-winning and sought-after voice artist. And you'll hear that as he begins to go into his instruction. But we are honored and grateful to have him here. Personally, I am deeply honored to call him my friend. So without further ado, Mr. Gene Rowley.
Thank you. Is that all? I mean, you can't just keep going because
Oh,
okay, he just muted everyone.
Yes, you have to unmute yourself.
I did. I unmuted myself. It's so strange hearing. Thank you, Greg. First of all, thank you. It's so strange to hear someone else talk about all of the things that you've done in your life, because to you, it's just your life. It's just the way it is. But when you hear someone else extol it, it's humbling, actually. So thank you for that introduction. Welcome, everyone, to my studio. This is actually one of the studios we have here at the radio station. I decided this would make a much nicer backdrop than the Millennium Falcon, which is what I used yesterday to cover up my office at home. Welcome to Audiobooks That Speak to You. And I appreciate each and every one of you for taking time out of your day and out of this important and wonderful conference to come to this. We're going to talk about DIY audiobooks. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And that will allow us to look at our agenda for today. All right, so everybody should be able to see my screen. The title of the presentation is Audiobooks That Speak to You, but it's really, we're going to talk a little bit about the audiobook industry. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can take your writing and what you've already created to a new market, and if you already have, how to go from good to great. We're also going to talk about DIY tips and tricks that you can do yourself. I am a professional actor. I do this every day. And what I tell people, and especially authors, is you don't have to hire someone like me. If you can, that's wonderful. If you can't, it's not imperative. One of the things about audiobooks that we're really going to talk about in the fast, cheap, and good section is how much it costs, the actual costs. Relatively speaking, I'm going to speak in generalities today about what it costs, some more expensive, some less. We'll also, I have some audio clips in the Choose Production Wisely section. That is going to be a little more difficult. This presentation was developed so that I could do it in front of a live audience. You are a live audience, but it's going to be very difficult for me to broadcast the audio to you. So we did a test earlier today before this class, and it seemed to work okay. But I will, once we get to that section, I will ask that if you have extraneous noises in your home or you're having trouble hearing, turn up your audio, because you're going to actually be hearing it from the speakers on my computer going through the microphone. It's not the ideal setup, but we believe it will work. We're going to talk about audiobook distribution. We're going to talk about the pitfalls. We're going to talk about how to avoid some of those things that that we all seem to be trapped in when to audiobook distribution. And we're going to spend a little bit of time on emerging technologies. Specifically, we're going to talk about some of the things that I've innovated with my own experience in the audiobook market and also as a publisher of audiobooks. And then most of the last, we're gonna open up for lots of questions at the end. But of course, if you have a question, please do so. Put it in chat. Greg, feel free to interrupt me if there's an immediate question that comes by. But if you can capture those questions, and then we'll tackle those at the very end. And we're going to leave lots of time for questions. So let's get back into it. Who am I? Should you be listening to what I have to say? Beyond everything Greg said, I love authors. I am one. I care for authors. And the reason I do this is for two reasons. Number one, I want you to expand what you've written, especially since we're talking to Christian authors, about getting the message out to people. One of the great things about the medium we work in is everyone can enjoy it and everyone can gain from it. And number two, I'm tired of authors being taken advantage of by audiobook production houses, by unscrupulous voice actors. We don't need that in our industry. We don't need that in the publishing side, and we don't need it in the audiobook production side. And I see it all the time. So I decided to do a class to encourage you to potentially record your own audiobook, because nobody knows your characters like you do. And two, if you do have the means to go ahead and hire a professional voice actor, the right way to do that, who to look for. Because these days, if you've got one of these, you can be a voice actor. Not exactly a professional voice actor, but you can be. And the problem is if you hire someone, let's say on Fiverr, and you've listened to them and they've got every production trick in the book, it may or may not work out. I've been taken advantage of, not in the voice acting side, but in another side. And I just want to stop that. So who am I? Like as Greg said, I'm a nationally recognized voice actor. I've been doing this since I was a kid. I actually started in radio when I fell into a ditch, and I was a sophomore in high school. And I fell into a ditch and sprained my ankle, and it was behind a radio station. They took me inside the radio station to their break room, and the program director heard my voice as I was screaming about my sprained ankle and offered me a job on the spot. I call it my ditches to riches story, even though I haven't gotten to the richest part yet. We're all still working. And I've been doing it ever since. I'm blessed to work at KKLA. I started off in a little tiny radio station in Dover, Delaware, and I worked my way up the radio ladder to the #1 market and the #1 Christian radio station in America, KKLA in Los Angeles. And I was so blessed to work with a man named Frank Pastore, who was a pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies and had a grave injury while in a game, and it destroyed his ball career and launched his ministry. And I was able to learn from him and glean from him. And he took this tragedy and turned it into a way to change people's lives. And I learned from that. And that's why the radio station in which I'm sitting is a 100% nonprofit. All of our proceeds go to ministries and charities and civic organizations here in our local community. As Greg said, I'm a nominee. This is an old presentation. It's now a 3-time nominee. The first year for the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences. I have numerous audiobook credits, numerous video game credits. Basically, my agent, when he talks to people, he says, if you ever been to the movies or watched television, you've heard Gene's voice, you just didn't know it. And I kind of like that because it's the anonymity. I can walk down the street and I'm the guy in the movie trailer that you just watched and you don't know it. And it's a beautiful thing. I like that anonymity. Lately, I've turned my attention to audiobooks rather than television and movies for several reasons, which I explained earlier, but also I only have to do it one time and it's out there forever. And I kind of like that. As I get older, we all start to look for those types of residual income, and that's a big one for me. So I want to focus in on the fact that I am a 2-time nominee or 3-time nominee. I'm sure I'll be nominated again this year for some other work that I've done. But the reason I haven't actually won is I keep coming in second to various talented people. Like this guy. I came in second to this guy. You may not know who this is. This is Boss Nass from Stores episode 1. I also came in second to this guy. So this is Hawkman from remember the name of the movie. So yeah, there it is. Voltan, King of the Hawkmen, and Boss Nass. Actually, is a very talented actor. His name is Brian Blessed. He is super talented, classically trained British actor. And if I was to come in second to anybody, I am blessed to come in second to him because he is fantastic. All it does is inspire me to hone my craft just that little bit more so that I can say I came in first above Boss Nass and Voltan the Hawkman. So 3-hour industry overview in 15 minutes. Audiobooks are everywhere. You can't turn the corner without another audiobook. We're going to look at the growth of audiobooks, download versus physical ownership, how the market has changed since 2005, 2007, what the good things are and the bad things are about both owning your own audiobook and then also downloading an audiobook. And we'll go through the rest of the cost, whether you should hire a professional voice actor, the do-it-yourself production, choosing a voice actor wisely and taking your time. I don't know about you, but when I wrote my first book, all I wanted to do was hold it in my hand and say, look, world, I did it. That led me to a lot of problems. And I run into authors all the time that felt the same way. We go through the same process. We have this idea, we pour ourselves into it, and then we hold it in our hand, and it's that moment of your welcome world. And the reality is it probably needs to be edited 14 more times, and I need to spend another 3 years working on it and honing the language and getting it to where it needs to be. But I held that book in my hand. So choosing and taking your time, very important. And we'll talk about distribution in the future of audiobooks. So I love infographics. I don't know if you like me, but the more information you can pack into a single sheet of paper, the better. Infographics speak to me. This is the latest data that I have is 2014. I'm sure there's an infographic out there with better, but this proves the point. So in 2007, there were approximately 3,000 audiobooks published. So what, 13 years ago? 7 years after that, 6 years ago, that number had jumped to 40,000, and we're probably well over 60,000 now. I think these numbers hold true, and you can look at all of the different facts on this sheet about the growth of audiobooks, and this is really anything you don't need to know. However, I want to focus in on one thing. In 2014, just 6 years ago, they said that digital downloads will represent the next audiobook trend. Now, fast forward 6 years to 2020, and we now know that nobody owns audiobooks anymore, do they? Everybody downloads audiobooks today. This is what it looked like in 2007. 78% of people owned an audiobook, and the way they did that was on CD. But fast forward, by the way, look at MP3, 1%, 17% download. Fast forward 10 years, and the numbers actually flipped. 3 years ago, 80% of the market was download audiobooks, and almost 20% was still people buying CDs. Now, when you walk into your local big box store, your local bookstore, or your chain bookstore, you'll notice they still sell CDs. Ever ask yourself why? If more than 80%, this is 3 years ago, was buying download audiobooks, well, why are these? The reason they still sell CDs is because people still buy CDs. There is a market of people that want to own the audiobook. And then there are a couple pros and cons why, which we'll talk about. So I want to jump into the production. Some of the things that we are scared of when we think about doing our own audiobooks, when we think about hiring one to do it for us. And I want to allay a lot of those fears. And I'm going to show you some things that may or may not surprise you, because I'm sitting in a studio. I've got a $1,000 microphone here. This is not where I do audiobooks. This is the radio station. So let me show you where I do and how I do audiobooks. And pay attention, because this is the do-it-yourself. If you feel you have the ability and the time and the desire to read your own book, I do recommend that you do some acting classes if you have any acting in your background, and that you record one chapter or 10 minutes and then work on that to hone your craft. But let's start with the equipment, because this is always the part that scares people. You always hear getting a good mic key. Got to have that microphone. You got to have that $1,000 RE20, or this thing, which is a Neumann microphone. It's the top of the line. I agree that having a good microphone is key, but it's not your biggest concern. Everybody focuses on the microphone, and more importantly, they focus on the cost of the microphone. Oh, I've got this microphone, I've got that microphone, and it cost me $1,000. The reality is that this $3,500 or $3,600 microphone will sound almost exactly like this $80 microphone in the right circumstances. So you don't have to go and break the bank to record high quality audio. And I'm not talking about the quality of the read or the performance. I'm speaking strictly about the audio quality itself. And to prove that, most of the audiobooks that I've produced, including Hallie Bridgman's, that was nominated for Audiobook Narration of the Year, was done on this microphone, which I found at a Best Buy for $99. So the quality of the microphone is fine, you know, it's good. But the production and the room you're in and the performance, excuse me, is much more important. So let's talk about the room. By the way, never drop the mic. When you hear someone say, drop the mic, they don't own that mic because they are expensive and nobody who ever paid for a microphone wants to drop the microphone. Excuse me. Okay, so let's talk about the room. This is the number one most important aspect of recording an audiobook, bar none, full stop. You may think you have to come to $1 million studio or buy some giant box to get in or cover your room in this stuff, and really don't. There are lots of ways to do it so that you don't have to do that. One of the biggest aspects is that everything in the room will be heard in the final product. The dog barking down the street, the fire truck going by, the fan in the other room, your kids or family playing downstairs, everything gets picked up by this microphone. Some in different grades, some louder than, there's a cone that comes out, but everything gets picked up. So what you want to look for is a spot where you can record, if you decide to do it yourself, where everything is consistent. If you move your coffee cup from one side of the desk to the other, it will change the sound of this microphone picking it up. So consistency is key. Well, let's look at some options. You've got this thing. You can put that in your house. It comes in pieces in a giant truck, and they will put it together for you, and it costs $5,000, $6,000, and it will be perfectly quiet, and they won't hear the dog barking, and they won't hear the fire truck, and they won't hear the family playing. But you're also out $6,000 plus probably money for installation. What I use, usually on the road, is this. That's right, my walk-in closet. And when you think about it, the clothes hanging in a walk-in closet does almost exactly the same sound insulation as what this does. This is called Sonex. And when the sound hits the clothes or this stuff, it doesn't bounce back. It doesn't reflect like it would off a flat surface. So the more ripples have the different directions, it disperses sound. And that's why when you walk in your walk-in closet, it gets quieter. I'm not going to say go do it now, but immediately following this presentation, walk up, start singing, and walk in your walk-in closet. And you will notice an instantaneous sound difference. And that's because the audio, the sound being dispersed off your clothes. So I do a lot of recording in my walk-in closet. In fact, to be honest, most of the audiobooks that I've done that were nominated for national awards, don't tell anybody, but they were done not in a professional studio, but they were done in a walk-in closet. Sometimes they were done while I was on the road in a hotel room, and it looked like this. That's my computer, it's my microphone, that's my iPad with the text of the book on it. And all I did was take the pillows off head, pack them up against the wall, and I've got myself a impromptu recording booth. There are lots of expensive ways to do exactly what I did here, but I believe in just doing, I don't want to say on a shoestring, but finding ways to do it where I don't have to outlay a ton of money. That's the DIY part, the tips and tricks. Find a way to do it. So the process. Most people don't understand how audiobooks are produced. It is a long, it is a time-intensive process, and for every hour of finished audio in an audiobook, approximately 3 hours of work to produce. You have to record it, edit it, proof it, do pickup lines, master it, and finally publish it. Greg and I have been through this process many times. And people, when you go and buy an audiobook, that's why an audiobook costs $25, $30, $60, $80, because there's a lot of work that's put in. Multiple people touch an audiobook. So don't think it's just sit down, hit record, read, and we're done, because there's a process in place to get a professional sound as possible. Many of you may have seen something like this. And many of you may have said, I can't learn new things. I don't have time to learn this. This is scary to me. What's all the squiggly lines? I don't want to download another program. I don't have the money for this. Whatever it is, I want to please you. Do let this scare you. It may look daunting and scary and different, but in reality, it's a tape recorder. It's just a fancy digital tape recorder. And you'll use about 6 buttons, maybe 7. Stop, start, record, save. There is a little bit of a learning curve if you're going to edit your own audio, because that's what this is. This is a program called Audacity. It's free. You can download it for Windows and Mac, and it is a multi-track recording system. So you see the different waveforms there, but it's really not that. It's not that daunting. It's easier than using Excel in most of cases, because you're really only going. Everything else is advanced stuff. I don't need to know all that. I need to know how to cut audio, a piece of audio, move it around, and that's it. And that takes about 7 buttons. Now, a wise man once said to me, you can have it fast, good, or cheap. Pick 2. It happened to be Greg Bridgman. I don't think he coined that phrase, but that's who I heard it from. And I use that all the time because it rings true in almost everything we do, especially in business. When you're talking to an editor, you can have it fast, good, or cheap. Pick 2. If you want it fast and good, it's not going to be cheap. If you want it good and cheap, it's not going to be fast. If you want it fast and cheap, probably not going to be good. So I say that to say this. The same thing applies in audiobook production. The same thing applies when choosing a voice actor. The same applies when doing it yourself and choosing a microphone and finding a place to record and getting your computer set up, downloading the software. Take your time. We have something that we used to say in the military: slow is smooth and smooth is fast. If you're trying to do something quickly, you're probably going to be doing jerky movements. And what we wanted smooth and fluid movements, because then we could compress the time. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. The same thing applies. Take your time. Don't get frustrated if the audio software doesn't install the first time, or you open it up and it starts screaming at you about audio recording. Take your time. It will all work out, because what we want that end product to be something we're proud of, to hand to our listeners, our customers. When I talk about let me go back. When I talk about finding a voice actor, what I really mean is find that person that you trust. Find that person that is willing to devote the time and energy to producing your audiobook that you did in writing your amazing story. That takes time. That takes trust. You're handing this piece of work that you've created from nothing to someone to read for you and act out those characters for you and work with you as your team to say, hey, am I saying this properly? Oh, it's a different accent. Or I don't want you to act it. I want you to narrate it. So find that person that you trust. It might take a couple of bad ones to get through. I hate to say that, but they're out there. But when you find them, you'll know, because they will devote the time and energy, and so that they're proud of the product they hand you, and you're proud of the product you hand the people that buy it from you. So here is my easy to follow, totally not confusing audiobook decision chart. Feel free to screenshot this, but I know it's being recorded. I tried to make this funny, but it's actually not meant to be comedy. It really is the decision-making chart. Do you need a voice actor? Yes or no? Did you check Fiverr? Yes or no? Don't use Fiverr. Have you tried something like ADX, which we're going to talk about in a minute? Are you recording it? Did you find a voice actor? Are they any good? Can you record them? Most of it leads to a circle that says, am I in the right position to get my audiobook produced this time? Yes or no? If you are, you're going to end up on the little green box down at the bottom. Congratulations, you're getting an audiobook. If you're not, then you continue to do the circle, because most of them lead back to, do you need an actor? Yes or no? If the answer is no, then you're very quickly going to find that you have your own audiobook. And that's why I tend to tell authors of all stripes, no one knows your book like you do. No one knows your characters and their emotions. You know every plot point. You know everything that was going on in their head. And one of the tricks of recording that audiobook is to express the emotions of the characters using nothing but your voice. There are books that I've read that I break down in tears reading, because it's such a powerful scene. And in the back of my mind, I know somewhere out there, someone's going to be listening to my voice, and they're going to, the room's going to go dark, and the air's going to get heavy, and the presence of God is going to descend on them. And it's all because of your book. That is so important. I get emotional just thinking about it. Somewhere out there, someone's life is going to be changed because of what you're writing down. And they're going to hear it through a voice actor and the emotion they portray those characters with. That's huge. So, everybody go through the chart several times. So, at this point, we're going to listen to some audio voice actors who claim to be professional voice actors. I'm going to turn my computer up. Hopefully you guys can hear these. They're just about a minute and a half long. And I'm going to stop each one and we're going to talk about them just briefly. So hopefully this will work. Now, I see a couple faces on the screen. So if you can hear this fine, please give me a thumbs up so that I know everything's working properly.
I got your back.
Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Chapter 11. What I Heard in the Apple Barrel. No, not I, said Silver. Flint was captain. I was quartermaster, along with my timber leg. The same broadside I lost my leg, oh Pew lost his deadlights. It was a master surgeon, him that amputated me. Out of college and all, Latin by the bucket and what not. But he was hanged like a dog and sun-dried like the rest at Corso Castle. That was Robert's men, that was, and combed of changing to their ships, Royal Fortune, and so on. Now what a ship was christened at her stay, I says. So it was the Cassandra, as I brought us all safe home from Malabar after England took the Vight of the Indias. So it was with the old Walrus, Flint's old ship, as I've seen a muck with the red blood and fit to stink with the gold. Ah! Cried another voice, that of the youngest hand on the board.
I hope you could hear that. I sit and laugh every time I hear it. I'm not laughing because this gentleman is trying to portray these characters. I'm laughing because the performance is just terrible. It's just terrible. I hate to be so critical, but this one has a long way to go to learn his craft. Pacing, the room. I don't know if you could hear the echo in the room behind him. It sounds like he was recording it on his phone in a room. I mean, I just don't. That was a poor choice. Here's another one.
The Inferno, Canto 1. Midway in our life's journey, I went astray from the straight road and woke to find myself alone in a dark wood. How shall I say what wood that was? I never saw so drear, so rank, so arduous. Its very memory gives a shape to fear. Death could scarce be more bitter than that place. But since it came to good, I will recount all that I found revealed there, by God's grace.
Would you like to listen to that for 9 hours?
It's like Walter Winchell's intro.
So exactly that they put some popping in the background, the record, to make it sound like it was a record pop. This was recorded in 2018, by the way. And he was so monotonistic and just his delivery. If that's what they were going for, they nailed it. But personally, I want to listen to that for 9 hours. There's another one.
What would you do if you knew this was the last night of the world? What would I do? You mean, seriously? Yes, seriously. I don't know. I hadn't thought. She turned the handle of the silver coffee pot toward him, placed the 2 cups in pressers. He poured some coffee.
This one annoys me because I'm a huge Ray Bradbury fan. In fact, I'm a fan of all of these. And I don't know that that's how he meant to write that scene. I don't know that scene was so serious, overly serious. And then the breath. You heard all the breaths, every single breath they took. Again, professional voice actor, hiring just anyone from, let's say, Fiverr. I pick on Fiverr. Well, let's look at some you chose wisely. This is Scott Brick.
If you dial
If you can hear that.
eyes open and watching for greater vengeance, then I'll dial the same. I'll dial the maximum, and you'll see a fight that makes every argument we've had up to now seem like nothing. Dial and see. Just try me. She rose swiftly, loped to the console of her own mood organ, stood glaring at him, waiting. He sighed.
So the inflection, the pacing, the clear sound of the room he was in, just fantastic. Scott Brick is actually one of the top voice actors in the country. Is about 900 titles to his credit. It's also one of the most expensive. You know, they have big studios in New York and so on. Just absolutely fantastic.
She's buried beneath a silver birch tree, down towards the old train tracks, her grave marked with a cairn. Not more than a little pile of stones, really. I didn't want to draw attention to her resting place, but I couldn't leave her with reverence. She'll sleep peacefully there. No one to disturb her. No sounds but bird song and the rumble of passing trains.
You feel that? Feel that emotion in that voice actor? Paula, I don't remember who that was. Absolutely beautiful read. Clean room, powerful, emotional scene, the right pacing and tempo. Here's one that should be familiar to you.
Hey, Gene, just a time
forward
check. You got about 20
through her
minutes.
very essence. The words wrote themselves on her heart. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling. Oh, sinner, come home, come home. He held his hand out as if he looked beyond the rows and rows of filled pews and spoke directly to Robin personally. Come home, not even certain that legs would carry her. Robin stepped out in the aisle. She didn't realize that Tony walked with her, his hand on the small of her back. But when she reached the front, an older woman with the kindest eyes she had ever encountered came forward to meet her. She held both hands out, and Robin placed hers in them. As soon as their skin touched, Robin fell to her knees, sobbing. I'm so weary, she sobbed. I know. On her own knees, the woman put her arms around Robin's shoulders and wept with her. I know, child.
I'm not going to talk about myself, but hopefully you heard everything that we talked about previously.
Oh, I'll talk about you.
I put that in and not to stroke my ego, but that one won the that was nominated for audiobook narration. Yeah. Go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry.
I was just going to let you know you have about 20 minutes.
Yep. So let's talk about aggregators and distribution. We're going to go fairly quickly here because I want to get to your questions. There are lots of ways to get your audiobook once it's produced out to people. One of them is the biggest one, which is ACX. You have to watch out for exclusive contracts, which means you can't sell your own audiobook once it's produced. You have to sell it through their medium. A non-exclusive contract is the way I always recommend people go, and that is so that you can sell it on multiple platforms, multiple websites, and you also can sell it yourself over the table. And that's what Hallie does. It's on every website, but it's also available for her to sell herself. These are all of the ways you can distribute an audiobook. You didn't know there were so many. I mean, maybe you knew there were so many. I only knew there was about 3, and then I started doing research, and boom. So let's talk about emerging technologies very quickly. This is not a sales pitch. I just happen to know the guy who created it, which is me, so I'm going to talk about it. This is something that we call the jump card. It contains a full unabridged audiobook on a USB. I carry one in my wallet, actually. I should have broken it out. But I just carry in my
I think you have to stop sharing so that they can see you on video.
Oh, right. Okay. So let me stop sharing and we'll come back. Where's my mouse? Ugh. Hold on.
So many moving parts.
There we go. Did I stop sharing?
Yes, we can see you.
Okay. Yeah, and it fits in the USB in your car or in your computer, and then you just flip it back. Again, I just carry this one around in my wallet, but we've got several different authors. We work with other publishers as well. And again, this is not a sales pitch, but I just want to show some of the things that are coming, that are happening. You've seen the lots and lots of downloads, and they have the little cards that you can download. This is actually physical ownership. I want to focus in on people owning their own audiobooks, so that's why we created this. On the back, it's all of the information, just like a book. It has the author's picture and so on, and then you can. The best thing about this is, just like your paperback, you can share it when you're done with it. It's not a one-time download.
Okay. This demo really doesn't do this justice. If you take this and flip the little USB fob out and plug it into a USB, if your car has a USB port, it immediately starts playing the audiobook, and it will keep track of where you are, what you're listening to. So the next time you plug it in, it'll pick up where you left off. It does work with Whisper Sync if you also have the ebook, and I believe most of these come with the ebook on the card. Do they not, or a download? For the ebook?
Yeah, there's a download code that comes with it. Yeah.
So this is probably, you're probably going to see a lot more of this in the future.
I sure hope so. All right, so let's get back to this real quick, and then we're going to get to your questions because I know there's probably lots of questions. Okay. Questions. I have some answers. Hopefully they make you laugh. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry,
So
ladies and married.
we did have some
Hang
questions.
on, I can get through my standard question.
Oh, right.
Yes, I will record your voicemail. No, I'm totally booked at this time. Yes, I've always sounded this way. Most people ask. I've sounded since I was a baby, just like this. And maybe, but only if you do it at the audible standard, which is that's an audio production joke. Okay, I'm sorry. Now for questions.
Okay, so Kay says, question, if I'm more of a speaker who writes than a writer who speaks, can we do an audiobook without having a physical written book that goes with it? In other words, I guess just an exclusively audiobook or book on audio, no written book or ebook.
Absolutely. I know a lot of speakers that actually record their presentations over multiple events, because every time you do it, it's slightly different. So they take those and they aggregate them. And then what they do is they actually build a script, no book, and then record it. The problem with doing that is the length of it. You can absolutely record it, but I don't know that it would be called an audio book. Most audio books are either novellas, collections of short stories, or novels. So they have hours and hours of entertainment. If you have multiple presentations that you do, absolutely, I recommend you put them together into some type of audio media so people can listen in their cars specifically.
Okay. Gene, there were several discussions about the software. Pam says she uses Audacity to record students' oral tests in French class. That's pretty cool. Tamara says she has GarageBand. And is that an okay program to use? Kay says, question, I have Audacity, but I also have Power Director Video Editor, and others recommend Adobe Audition. What do you recommend? So maybe just spend a few minutes riffing on software.
Sure. I use GarageBand. It comes free with Mac. We have several Macs in our studios. It's designed to use for music, but I've found that it is so easy to use and user friendly and intuitive that it makes perfect for audiobook editing. Remember, the cost of these things is not what's important. It's how you're able to use them. We also use Audacity. So we record in GarageBand, and then we export those files and master them in Audacity. Because one thing Audacity has that pretty much all of the others don't is a preset for audible.com or ACX. So it's called RMS, and it means root mean square, and it's an algorithm that makes it perfect for upload. I don't know if you've ever uploaded something to ACX, which we didn't really talk about much. I wanted to spend more time on it, but if you've ever uploaded and said this does not meet our audio standards, go to Audacity, click one button, and it will immediately meet their audio standards. Let's talk about Adobe Audition. Adobe Audition is a great program. I used it. I remember when it was before Adobe owned it. I've used multiple different audio editing softwares. Some people use video editing software to edit the audio. I don't recommend that because they're just larger files. Find the one that works for you. Find the one that doesn't break the bank. If you have a Mac, you have GarageBand, and if you don't have a Mac and you don't want to go buy a $100 piece of software, begin using Audacity. There is a learning curve. I'm not going to say it's an out-of-the-box solution. There is a learning curve, but it's not what you probably expect.
Okay. There was a question about whether you recommend a particular microphone brand. I assume they're talking Yeti or this or that. I happen to know that you prefer for audiobook a USB microphone, but maybe talk about microphones a little more.
Absolutely. So, as I said in the presentation, the microphone is an important choice, but it's not the important choice. The room that you put the microphone in is 100 times more important than the microphone. I don't have a specific brand of microphone. There are microphones designed for radio broadcast, which work perfectly well. They're more expensive, and they're also not USB. They're an XLR. You're going to have to put them into a preamp, and there's a lot more audio technical stuff on the side of that. Most of what I do is via a USB microphone, because I know that the room I'm in is more important than the microphone. I do recommend you get something like this. This is a wind guard or a pop filter. You'll see Greg, if you look at Greg, he's got something similar on his microphone. And then he also has a secondary one that goes out in front of him. They do diminish the audio just slightly, but nobody's ever going to notice, and it gives you a cleaner sound, especially if you're talking into the microphone and you hear popping their P's all the time. You'll also notice that Greg and I have the microphone off to the side like this. It's never in front of us. You never want to talk directly into the microphone. You actually want to talk at a 45-degree angle to the microphone. And what that does is you're talking past it. You want to talk past the microphone, not into the microphone, and you won't pop your P's. I recommend you get a microphone that's good.
I was going to say, I think it's important too to note that the microphone should be at the same angle and distance all the time, right? That consistency matters as much as the room sound, right?
Yes, well, in the consistency of the setup, yeah, exactly. That microphone needs to be in the exact same spot, the same distance from you. You need to use the same volume, all of that. I don't recommend a certain brand. I recommend you get what you can afford. It is so easy to spend money on microphone when you don't really need to. You can get a USB mic from $100 on up or less. Yeti's a good brand. The Snowballs are fine. Rode is another one that makes pretty good microphones. If you really want to go all out and you want to do this professionally, you can get a $3,000 Neumann. You can get a $1,000 Neumann. You can get an RE20 or an RE320. They're all going to sound exactly the same unless you have a perfectly tuned, calibrated ear, which probably none of us do.
That's great advice, Gene. Thank you. Joan wants to know if there's a handout for your class.
I don't have a specific handout. I assume this is going to be recorded. So most of the information, I guess I can print this and make it a handout.
Okay.
Again, this is designed to be done live in front of a studio audience, so you can laugh.
If you want to make a PDF of your slides, Gene, we can make them available with the video. And
I already did from last year. Yeah.
Just a reminder that all the videos, all the classes are videoed with closed captioning and will be available on the website for 6 months after the conference. Okay, Pam says, this is a great question. What level of prep work does a voice actor do before recording? I assume they read the book in advance. And I personally know with the Treasure Island example you gave, it was clear that he had not read what he was reading before he started recording.
No. Great question. So you can instantly tell whether a voice actor has read the work and prepare or not. It's called a cold read. If I just pick it up, Alice in Wonderland, start reading, one of the things a professional voice actor should do, and if you want to do it yourself, I recommend you do this as well, is break out each character. You don't have to make them sound so different. You just have to make them sound different enough. For example, in Hallie's book, it's about 3 sisters. I'm the guy being the 3 sisters, and they're all in the same room and they're having a conversation, and I have 3 distinct women. So a professional voice actor will break out who these people are, especially if a man is doing a woman or a woman is doing a man. They have to get into that character if they're going to be acting the book. And that's something else. You have two styles of voice actors. You've got a narrator who's simply going to read the book, and then you have a voice actor, and the actor is going to infuse into the characters differences. So when a character is speaking, you'll know it's that character. For example, I'm going to go back to Hallie's book. The 3 sisters, one of them is small, the youngest is timid, the middle sister is boisterous and active, and then I have a standard, the oldest sister. So no matter who's speaking, you know who it is because I'm changing my inflections and I'm changing the power of my throat, how forceful I'm speaking, and it works. Oh, I'm gonna stop sharing. Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. and because I'm sitting here emoting as I'm talking, and that's really the trick. So part of that preparation is definitely you have to read the work. You definitely have to talk with the author and understand. Let's talk about this scene right here. I don't really get it. And the author will explain it to you. And if you're the author, then you obviously know. And then each specific main character of the book needs to be distinctive. Great question.
So Tony Shiloh asks, where would you suggest we take acting classes or even voice classes? Do you mean voice acting?
Yep. Great question. You don't have to take specific voice acting classes. Any public, like local college will have some acting classes. Usually community theater is a great place to get involved with. If you want to take some classes, they're going to know who to talk to.
How about like
Toastmasters? Toastmasters is great for getting in front of crowds and getting over any fear of public speaking, but it's not an acting class. They're going to talk about diction and pacing and things like that. Community theater is a great place to start. However, I do not recommend you go and spend a bunch of money and hire a coach. I'm just going to say this. Probably 80% of the coaches out there could care less about your success. They just want your money. If you trust them, if you know them, if you've worked with them, if you feel comfortable doing that, then do it. I've been taken to the bank by a coach. Hey, come in, talk in this microphone for an hour. That's $300. Just don't do it right off the bat. The best place to start, if you're looking for acting classes, is your local community college or a local theater. Those people are the nicest human beings you will probably ever meet. And if you tell them, hey, I'm an author and I want to read my own audiobook, but I really want to get some acting classes before I do it, they're going to love you. Absolutely going to embrace you.
Okay. We only have a few minutes left. I want to get to the rest of the questions. Pam asks, is the voice actor usually responsible for the audio equipment and editing? I assume so.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And the production. If you hire a professional voice actor, you're going to hand them your book, and about 8 months later, hopefully, they're going to hand you a professionally edited audiobook. You are part of the process. Don't think it's like you don't get to say. You're going to check every audio file. You're going to find every mistake they made. You're going to tell them what they need to change. Be part of the process, but they're going to be responsible for everything. If you find a voice actor that says, hey, buy me this microphone, don't walk, run.
So Brenda says, I have a female protagonist written in first person. Is it best to hire a female voice actor? How do I find someone affordable?
Great question. I get this question all the time. If you're writing it in first person and you're writing a specific gender novel, then yes, finding a female voice actor is hard, but typically because just the number of male voice actors versus female voice actors. But yes, if you're writing in first person, I highly recommend that you hire a female voice actor, and there are a lot of good ones out there.
So when we did research into
get away
this,
with it.
When we did the research into this years ago, we found that for romance novels, if you can have a male voice actor, that's preferred by the audience, interestingly. But that's specific to the romance genre as well.
I get it all the time that people come up and they're like, oh, you read that? Yeah, I did. Oh, I love listening to that in the shower. And I'm like,
yeah. Yeah, they have you in the shower with them.
I fall asleep to your voice. I get that one a lot too. I'm
Nice.
like, okay, so I just put you to sleep.
Okay, so Tim asks, Timothy Hicks, where do we find jump card book titles? Thanks.
Okay, so this just go to jumpmasterpress.com. We're not supposed to be selling. Oh yeah, there's so much there, and I'm available. You can email me. By the way, I know we've only got about a minute left, but if you've got more questions, feel free to email me, Gene at jumpmasterpress.com, GENE at jumpmasterpress.com. You can put that in the chat for them if you want, Greg. Feel free to email me, ask me any questions that you don't get asked during this presentation. Also, here in about 15 minutes, I'm doing an audiobook Q&A. So if you want to come back and ask the question there, you're welcome to do that as well. But I'm just here to help you. I'm here to support authors. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to get you, to buy a bunch of these. This is not what I'm about. If you want to do that, we'll discuss that. But I'm here to support you and do it yourself, because I want your message and your story to reach people.
Amen.
Whether I read it or you read it.
Right.
That's what's
okay. We have about a minute left. I've unmuted everyone. If you have any last minute questions, or if you want to give Gene a round of applause, let's go ahead and do that, guys. Yay. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you everyone for coming.
Yep.
Oh,
thank you.
She's trying to talk, I think. Here, there.
All right. So do people prefer the author to read the book themselves, or not?
Right. Great question. Author read text.
Just to finish up, and again, here in about 15 minutes, we're going to have another audiobook Q&A session. I'm sure that's going to come up again. There is no preference. It's really the author's preference. What a listener prefers is a well-written, well-produced, engaging story. Who reads it to them is not really the factor. If I was to say, give you my preference, I prefer hearing the author read, as long as the author, I hate to say this, as long as the author does as well as, I'm coming from a professional voice actor. So I prefer to hear the author, because I want to hear all of the emotion they put in the character. I want to hear, but it's got to be done right. Let's put it that way. But it's not the major factor. Well-written, engaging story, well-produced. Remember, people are buying this from you. They're buying these, or they're buying your audiobook. They're downloading it from Audible. They're engaging, they're giving money. So if they have a tangible product that they feel is well done and well made, that's more important than who reads in the story.
All right, we got to end the meeting, but thank you all very much. Sessions continue starting at 10:15. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.